The engineer has always had a special place in my heart. In fact, he was the very first class I picked up in casual servers. Every time I look at an engineer defending the intelligence, I cannot feel but inspired by their constant engagement on protecting that objective. I mean, out of all the classes, the engineer is obviously the most wholesome and sane person on the team. He means you no harm. He wants you to have fun. And there's not any issue with him whatsoever. Nope, never mind. Engineer is evil. Delete this class! Welcome back to the Reworkshop, where we discuss weapon stats, issues, and potential fixes. As you've most likely noticed, this one's on the Wrangler, a secondary for the engineer that allows you to, well, wrangle your Sentry and take matters into your own hands when you're in a pinch. Whether you need to target a distant sniper, an overhealed heavy, or even yourself, the Wrangler's got you covered. In addition to being a neat little remote control, it also gives your Sentry a shield that blocks 66% of all damage and doubles the firing rate. As for downsides, you sacrifice the ability to do damage with another secondary, repair rate is reduced by 66%, and you have to wait 3 seconds after switching back to another weapon before your Sentry begins automatically aiming again. Now, let's talk about how broken this thing is in actual gameplay. Number 1. The Wrangler changes the role of a Sentry for absolutely no reason. Now, before you go into the comments getting angry and telling me that the Gunslinger does the same thing, please realize the Gunslinger isn't really a problem due to how it changes the way an engineer plays. No, I'm saying that the Wrangler takes the Sentry's role from being the backup reserve for when your team needs to retreat and changes it to being a tank without giving the weapon any real downsides. Allow me to explain this. A normal level 3 Sentry has 216 health. With the Wrangler, that health is effectively increased to 648! To put this into scale, that's more than 2 heavies combined. That doesn't even include the possibility of the engineer actively switching between his wrench and the Wrangler. If an engineer has a constant supply of metal, which is almost guaranteed to happen due to the existence of dispensers, it is actually impossible for a direct hit soldier to destroy a wrangled Sentry. In order to take this thing down, you either need several people to commit to destroying it, or you need to kill the engineer. Easier said than done. The Wrangler is one reason why Sniper has recently become so prevalent in Highlander, as he is the team's best bet at taking out the engineer. By the way, I will be going over Sniper in another video, so please subscribe if you want to hear my thoughts on that. Many players realize how much stronger their Sentry is with the Wrangler, and they decide to use the tool offensively. In some cases, this strategy works pretty well. Unfortunately for inexperienced engineers, using a wrangled Sentry offensively often doesn't work too well. This makes them feel like the weapon is average at best. I'm here to tell those engineers that the Wrangler is much more than average. Number 2. The Wrangler can completely ruin Gameflow. The perfect place to observe this phenomenon is Badwater. Take a look at the first point. A typical Wrangler engineer will place their Sentry here, where it has a clear sightline to the entire first point of the map. Additionally, this spot is close to health and ammo, and is easy to defend because of the high ground. In this area, an engineer can harass practically everyone and not be punished as long as he has his team. This is an obvious fact all players in Team Fortress 2 should know. The more people you have, the stronger you become. This aspect of the game is much more prevalent for the engineer because of his buildings. The more people use his supportive buildings, the stronger the entire team becomes. And the stronger the entire team becomes, the stronger the engineer's Sentry will become. An engineer needs his team support, as it can allow his Sentry to become much more effective as time goes on in a round. Any weapon that can make use of that support, like the Wrangler, instantly makes the engineer even more powerful. A byproduct of all of this power is something that all players hate: stalemates. Most of the time, stalemates don't last too long and aren't that big of a deal, as they can usually be broken out of with a strong uber push. Unfortunately, when playing against the Wrangler, even uber pushes can be rendered useless. If the engineer lives, he can build another Sentry, and if you only destroy the Sentry, the engineer lives.
And if the engineer lives, he can build another Sentry. And if you only destroy the Sentry, the engineer lives. And if the engineer lives, he can build another Sentry. And if you only destroy the Sentry, the engineer lives.
The point is, the best way to handle a Wrangler engineer is to kill the engineer and then focus on the Sentry. Now, why is this such a big deal? I'll tell you why. All this does is waste time, disrupt the game's natural flow, and make the round unfun. Your team could be doing something more important and interesting, like taking out the medic, capturing the point, or picking off other members of the enemy team. Instead, the Wrangler effectively forces you to focus on taking down the enemy engineer and his nest. What's more fun, destroying an engineer's buildings or dropping the medic? You decide. You know, I really don't hate the Wrangler. It's a gimmick weapon in my eyes. That's why I find it fun to use. It allows the engineer to Sentry jump. Of course, movement is my favorite part of the game, so I am probably a little biased on that front. However, this weapon's gimmicky nature does not excuse how insanely overpowered it can be in the right hands. Regardless, it's about time to look at some of the changes we can make to the Wrangler in order to make it more balanced for everyone. One of the more interesting changes that I would like to propose is a complete overhaul of the Wrangler. It could be turned into a tool that can buff all of the engineer's buildings. This could give the Wrangler a purpose beyond creating a super Sentry. However, it would probably be more fitting to turn this idea into a separate weapon, as the Wrangler already has an interesting quirk. You could try marking the engineer for death when he uses the Wrangler instead, but this doesn't really solve the issue of the overpowered Sentry. Another idea that some people have thrown around is to completely remove the Wrangler's shield. But, in my opinion, this would be too drastic a change. As much as people hate it, I think the shield needs to exist in order to encourage new players to use the weapon. We could also try adjusting the repair rate and shield resistance values, but I don't think that would be enough to fix the issues we see in game. This brings me to my favorite idea. What if the shield was removed precisely when the engineer switches to his wrench or primary, but the repair rate reduction remained? Also, what if the Sentry needed to become autonomous before the engineer could use the Wrangler again? Now this is a potential rework. This specifically targets those who abuse the ability to heal your Sentry while using the Wrangler. The Sentry can still be healed, but now there is a consequence to switching between the Wrangler and the wrench. By making sure the Wrangler cannot be abused with the wrench, the engineer's Sentry becomes much easier to play against. If these changes were implemented, my hope is that newer engineers would not be severely impacted, while the player base as a whole would be able to deal with the annoyance that is the Wrangler. So, what are your thoughts on the Wrangler? Does it feel underpowered or overpowered? What do you think of these potential changes? And what solutions can you think of? Leave a comment with your thoughts below, and I'll try responding. Also, please like and subscribe, as it would greatly help me gain favor with the YouTube algorithm. It's free, and you can unsubscribe at any time you like. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.